we started, Sarah? We're good to go, Mr. Mayor. I guess as soon as the clock strikes 9. Counselor, how are you? Part of Midland. Everyone's there? No. That was the Easter one. Nothing to do with me. I got big ears. I didn't get Easter one.
Okay, good morning, council. I see we're at 9 a.m. We have quorum. I call this regular council meeting in session. And as always, the first thing we do is ask everyone to stand that can for the national anthem. Okay, thank you. And next, we have the land recognition statement, and this week, Councillor Kerr will do the honors.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We begin this meeting by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous people.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. And next up is the approval of the agenda, and I will turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be resolved that the agenda for the March 27th, 2024 regular meeting of council be adopted as circulated.
Thank you. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Thank you. I see none opposed. Mr. Clerk, motion passes.
Thank you. So moving now to item number 5, disclosure of pecuniary interests and general nature thereof, if any, are to be declared.
Thank you. After viewing the agenda, does any council member have a pecuniary interest and general nature thereof to declare? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk.
Moving now to item 6, our delegation has informed us that they're unable to attend this morning and they will reschedule for a different council meeting at some point in the future. So moving now to item number 7, we have the adoption of council minutes. I have a motion moved by Councillor Olson and seconded by Councillor Eckhart. Be it resolved that the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated and read. C-05-2024, regular council meeting of March 6, 2024.
Thank you. After reviewing the minutes, does any council member have any comments as opposed like omissions or additions to these minutes? Not seeing any. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Eckert.
When I read the minutes from the March 6th meeting, I believe right near the beginning of the meeting there was a motion that I seconded, but I wasn't here that meeting. I don't know if that needs to be adjusted or
to the clerk.
If you could have a look at that.
Yeah, we will make that change. Sorry for the error.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you for that, Councilor Eckert. Any other speakers? Not seeing any. All those in favor? None opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moving now to item number 8. This is the request to lift any consent agenda items for separate resolution. If there's just discussion, we could move to the consent agenda itself.
Thank you. Does any councillor wish to lift any of the consent agenda items? Not seeing any, Mr. Clerk.
Moving now to the consent agenda. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Niznik and seconded by Councillor Kerr. Be resolved that the consent agenda items listed on the March 27, 2024 council agenda be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved. So perhaps we could break it down dealing with 9.1 first, the staff reports of routine nature. If there's any questions.
Okay, thank you. I do have one for the Director of Public Works, Mr. Moore, 9.1.1 on the spongy moth status. So one is the company that did the research. I believe that's new. Do we RFP that out every year?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. So the company that did the review for us this past year, we went through a competitive process with respect to the RFP process, and it was a competitive bid through our procurement.
Okay, thank you. And on the report itself, it seems like we're not going to do aerial spraying. Will town staff be doing any ground spraying as perhaps was recommended in the report, or would that be up to individual residents?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll ask the manager of Public Works, Ryan Cook, to respond specifically on this, but yeah, you're right. No aerial spray this year. There is a operating budget that would support ground spraying if required, and I'll let Ryan speak to potential opportunities there.
Thank you. Mr. Cook?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, the staff are looking at the locations that were identified for potential ground spraying on the report. If we find them on municipal boulevards or other municipal property, there is an opportunity for us to complete some ground spraying. We can do that in-house. We have that ability, and staff are trained to use the pesticides. So it's we will be looking at that with potential yay or nay for ground spraying.
Excellent. Great to see. I believe this is the second year in a row that we haven't sprayed, Director?
Yes, that's correct.
Excellent. So, and declining population, so perhaps we will look forward to 3 or 4 years in a row as it goes. That's any other questions on staff reports? Before I move on, wait, I got to check this out. No, I guess I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. No, nobody else? Okay, go ahead, thanks.
So if we want to move on to 9.2, information correspondence received, there's 3 items there if anyone has questions.
Okay, any counselor have any questions on those consent agendas? Yeah, if I may, I guess this is to Director of Recreation, Ms. Van Ravensway. On the Pathstone Foundation, could you refresh our memory? How often what's the program at the MCC?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Pathstone is with us once a week, every Tuesday for the full day. Well, the evening, into the evening. It's a walk-in as well as by appointment. It's been very successful. We have had many great comments that we offer the program within the community.
Excellent. Reading through the report, I see that their average age for walk-ins is 11 and a half years old. That just blows my mind. When I was 11 and a half years old, I was playing in the barn with some cows or whatever, but I wasn't seeking counseling. But the good thing is, of course, is that the counseling is there or someone to talk to these children. I mean, that's obviously the great thing. Go ahead.
And I would also like to thank the area service clubs, the Rotary Club and the Lions Club, both Lions Clubs, the Fonthill and the Fenwick Lions Clubs, for their donations and helping us to be able to provide the service to the community. And without that, it may be difficult.
Excellent. Okay, thank you again. So yeah, tip of the hat to all the service clubs that are making this happen. Excellent. Any other questions on staff reports from anyone? Councillor? No, I don't see it. To the clerk.
Yeah, so then we can proceed to 9.3 Advisory Committee minutes for questions.
Any questions on the advisory committee minutes? Not seeing any. Mr. Clerk?
So we have the resolution on the floor. We can proceed to the vote then.
Okay. All those in favor? I don't see any opposed. All those in favor? Thank you. I see none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So now moving to item 11 on the agenda, staff reports. I have a motion moved by Councillor Eckhart, seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that council receive report 2024-0066, fence variance 27 Milburn Drive for information, and that council approve the requested 6-foot wooden fence to be erected on a small area considered the front yard of the property to conform to the town's pool bylaw regulations. To you for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on this item? To Councillor Nesnick.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Just one quick question with regards to the 6-foot fence coming out. Just making sure that it would not impede viewing or traffic coming out of the side road there. I was just going to try and look it up to give you the actual name of the...
To the, should I go to the fire chief or on this? Okay, go ahead. Fire
Woodside
chief.
Square, you know how they come out and make sure that they can look right without that fence
Correct.
impeding?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it doesn't come anywhere close. It's just the way the buildings were constructed on that property. And it comes out to a fine point, like a triangle. It's not anywhere near that side street.
Okay. I couldn't quite tell from where the Woodside ends. Yeah, it's a funny little lot, I know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions, comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor? I see none opposed. That motion carries. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So moving now to item 13, we have a motion moved by Councillor Olson and seconded by Councillor Kerr. Be it resolved that council endorse Councillor Bob Hildebrand's application to represent the town of Pelham on the LAS Board of Directors. To you for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor, would you, any comments?
For you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for allowing me to make a comment on my own recommendation.
Yeah, you've got an hour. That's it.
I won't take a lot of. I believe in committing to something bigger than yourself helps you grow, but not only helps you grow, helps the organization grow. BC, that's before becoming a council member, in my view. I worked as an engineer, and one of the things I recognized early on in my career is that not only did I have to have an Ontario membership, because of the problems I was encountering in the provincial level, I had to get several other provincial licenses to make my life a lot easier. And because most of my work was international, very little of our work was North American. And even in North America, the Americans didn't recognize anybody from Ontario. So I joined the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, and that gave me international recognition. And I believe the same happens with us as politicians. I'm recognized here in Pelham as a councillor. I'm recognized at the region because I'm on regional committees as part of the region. But provincially, I don't think we're necessarily recognized. And participating in an organization like LAS, which is part of the Association of Municipalities, I think goes a long ways in helping not only me as an individual grow, but us as a municipalities. LAS is the preferred provider of competitively priced and sustainable cooperative business services for Ontario municipalities and the broader service sector. LAS helps all municipalities, and like I said, the broader service. They deal with administrative, digital, energy, financial, municipal assets, and the CDM plan, which is Conservation, Demand, and Management Plan that we're working with. They help us as organizations to prepare, and actually within the next 2 years, once we get using this program even more, it'll automatically generate a lot of these reports for us. I think it's an excellent opportunity. There's a lot of applicants in. I know the other day when I was talking to them, there were already 20 people that were applying for this position. And I said, I hope you don't hold small against a person from Toronto and some of these other municipalities that are applying for this position, board position, as something, they're using a big matrix system and all kinds of convoluted systems to select their board member. But I think I'm well suited for the position, and like I told our CA, one of my checkpoints on this was, where is their office located in Toronto? It's 10 minutes from the Toronto GO station. So I said, that hit a check mark for me. That means if I have to go to Toronto, where the board meetings are, I can easily attend. So I would appreciate your support and me putting in the application. The application due date is tomorrow. So the only reason I knew even about this is because we're working on the energy plan for the town, and that's where I saw that they were looking for a board member. So that's my pitch for the rest of the councilors to support my application. Thank you.
Thank you for those words, Councillor. And so what we're doing then is authorizing you to put your name forward, and then they select the board member.
That's exactly how it works. I'm
And
just putting in my job application.
Yep.
And they're either putting a tick mark or no tick mark.
Excellent. And there's only one board member or board seat
From
up?
what I understand, it's only one seat they're looking
Okay.
for.
Well, first of all, on behalf of council, I want to thank you for putting your name forward.
Thank you.
And I'll open it up for any further discussion from any other members. Councillor Kerr?
Just a quick question, what's the duration of the appointment?
Well, I guess it would be the duration of my council term.
Okay, yep, thank you.
It's 2 to 3 years. I guess that's how that goes. It could extend to 3 years, but seeing as, you know, where exactly when I start and all this stuff, I'm not sure.
Okay,
But it'll be my council term.
thank you. Any other questions to the councillor?
Oh, I should mention, it's a volunteer position, so there's no remuneration as far as I know. I'm not being paid to do this job,
Okay, yeah, welcome to politics.
other than my pay at the town. But
Yeah, welcome to politics at the municipal level, yes. I'm not seeing any other questions. All those in favor? None opposed? Councillor, good luck in your endeavor.
Thank you. Well, as soon as I get home at lunch, I'm going to send in my resume. I got my cover letter already prepared.
And when will you find out if you're successful?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay,
I just want to thank the CAO in advance, because I didn't even realize what the process was in order to get my name forward for this. And
Excellent.
he made the adjustment to the agenda to get my name on the agenda so I could get approved in very short notice, so thank you.
excellent. And of course, as soon as you do hear the positive news, I'm sure, please let the rest of the council know.
Absolutely. I figure it's a sure shot.
Okay. That's the attitude we like. Thank you. To the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think we voted on that. Did we?
Yes.
Okay, good. So we now have a motion moved by Councillor Nisnik and seconded by Councillor Wink. Be resolved that the council for the town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaw, to now read a first, second, and third time and pass the same, and the mayor and clerk be and hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaw. Bylaw 19-2024 being a bylaw to establish certain lands as public highway. And for council's information, this is a housekeeping bylaw.
So it doesn't,
Turn it back to you for discussion.
so there's no pay raise for any staff member then, or the clerk perhaps?
Not now.
No. Okay, on this housekeeping agenda item, any questions or comments? I'll go to the Deputy Mayor Wink.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, through you. Hayes Court is a court, like it's very tiny street. Can someone clarify what exactly this is?
I can take a stab at it, Mr. Mayor, if you like.
Oh, okay, we'll turn
So
to the clerk.
there was a bylaw prior to the establishment of the town of Pelham in 1970 that laid out a 1-foot reserve as a road allowance within this court. That bylaw can't be sourced, so we're reestablishing the bylaw now to continue the 1-foot reserve as part of the road allowance. So it was through a legal process that the question was raised. They wanted proof of the documentation. We can't find it because it predates 1970, so we're reestablishing the bylaw.
So the reserve then, I assume, would be 1 foot closer to where the houses are being built? Like it increases our
Road allowance.
road allowance?
That's correct.
All right. And all the homes on that street are back considerably from the road, so it shouldn't impact the residents.
Yeah, and I think the solicitor might have a comment to either clarify or to correct what I just said.
Okay, turn to Ms. Sturton.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's really just in addition to what the clerk has said, that the town is already the owner of this 1-foot reserve land. We're not taking any land from any adjacent property. It belongs to the town. It's simply dedicating it as part of the road allowance, as part of the public highway.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any other questions on this item? Not seeing any. All those in favor? See none opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now moving to notice of motions, item number 15. I do have a motion moved by Councillor Olson and seconded by yourself, Mr. Mayor, of a resolution, and I'll turn it over to the mover to introduce his motion.
Okay, and Councillor,
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, everybody, for being here today, and to staff as well. First of all, the motion is whereas residents of the town of Pelham and other Ontario municipalities are struggling with rising energy costs, and whereas natural gas is no longer the only desirable way to heat homes because of innovations in electric heat pumps, which can provide all heating needs, even in cold climates, and result in competitive energy bills relative to gas heating. And whereas natural gas is a fossil fuel that contributes to Ontario's greenhouse gas emissions and should be phased out over time when possible and practical. While heat pumps currently result in a lower GHG emissions and are consistent with a zero carbon future. And whereas on December 21st, 2023, the Ontario Energy Board released a decision that eliminated a subsidy for the installation of gas pipelines to new construction developments as of January 1st, 2025, finding that this would lower energy bills for existing gas customers, excuse me, existing gas customers and improve affordability for new homeowners. And whereas on February 22nd, 2024, the provincial government introduced Bill 165, which if passed, will effectively overturn the OEB decision. And whereas the OEB's decision will help lower energy bills and encourage heating systems that are consistent with climate targets and plans. And whereas the construction of new methane gas pipelines, which have a 60-year lifetime, should not be subsidized because they are inconsistent with the town's climate targets and will result in higher carbon emissions, higher energy bills, higher future decarbonization retrofit costs to get off fossil fuel heating. Whereas the town of Pelham supports the decarbonization of heating and cooling systems in existing and future building stock within the community, Now therefore be it resolved that the council endorses and supports the OAB decision to end the gas pipeline subsidy, opposes the provision of Bill 165 that would effectively reverse the OEB decision, and calls on the Honorable T. Smith, Minister of Energy in the Government of Ontario, to rescind and amend Bill 165 accordingly. That this resolution be circulated to the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, Minister of Energy, Todd Smith, Ministry of Finance, Peter Bethlenfalvy, MPP, Sam Oosterhoff, and President of the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, Colin Best, and local area municipalities.
Okay, thank you, Councillor, and obviously give you opportunity to speak to the motion.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This legislation will increase both climate damage and energy bills for all consumers. This means that most of the 1.5 million houses that have to be built to satisfy the requirements of the immigration and the housing target, they will have zero incentive to install heat pumps. And if there's no incentive to install heat pumps, it will be heating and polluting with fossil fuels. If that happens, the equivalent of 22 million cars being driven 1 year will be put into the air in the community. Then the greenhouse gases will rise appreciably. That's 22 million vehicles a year. So those are pretty simple facts, and it's going to cost the average consumer another $600 during where is it here? $600. Sorry, sir, I'll leave that part out because I can't find my reference there. But the 22 million cars, I have that, and it's also going to lead to, I believe it will eventually lead to higher costs for housing over the long run. So I'll leave it at that, Mr. Mayor. I think the resolution was pretty well written. I thank the staff for that, include everything. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. And as a seconder, if I may say a few words also. So Diana Houston copied this resolution and took it to the region last meeting, and the resolution failed by a vote of 14 to 12. It was very close. And joined by the discussion that happened once the motion was tabled, there was a lot of, I believe there was a lot of confusion as to what the motion was trying to do. And basically, all we're trying to do is level the playing field to give new energy sources a chance to be used without having to go against a subsidized entity, natural gas. So there's talks about farmers won't be having access. Well, they're going to have access. And there's no subsidies to the agricultural community as it is. So so that argument doesn't work. This is in the mostly in the urban settings where they are. Natural gas is subsidized to have their layout infrastructure put in, whereas now we have other sources that are available. The science has been done. They are indeed viable, and just asking, all this is asking for is a level playing field so that they have the same chance to bid on these what's the word I'm looking for, towns as natural gas. And I never thought of geothermal being able to be used in a new site construction, but as opposed to my thinking that geothermal has to be level or parallel to the ground, they go down. 500 or 600 feet, and whatever it takes to heat a building to get that kind of heat source out, that's how many holes they drill. And a company will come in, bid on the subdivision, that's the word I'm looking for, and they'll take over the whole thing. They'll put the geothermal system in, and they will maintain that system. Meanwhile, when the natural gas is being subsidized, well, right away they're up against a non-competitive situation. So just like we had huge subsidies for electric cars in order to get them onto the marketplace, then that's what we have here, except instead of subsidizing the new energy source, we're asking that the old energy source have the subsidy taken off them to let the new sources have a fair crack at the market. That's basically what we're asking for on this, and I believe that's what the Ontario Energy Board was also, their main intent was. We're not going to shut off the gas valves overnight. It's a long-term process. I can never see myself or this province or this country eliminating natural gas completely. That's not what this is about. It's just to give new energy sources an equal playing field on the new buildings that are happening. And with that, I will open up the discussion to the motion to members of council. Councilor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you obviously knew I was probably going to put my two cents worth into this.
I thought maybe you would leave early and go put your application in, but
Well, that would probably be a good thing to do.
go ahead, sir.
This is a real complex issue. And I did reach out to the Energy Minister's office, and he provided me with his analysis of this motion, because obviously it's come from a few other places than just us. Hamilton had one, Kingston had one. There's a few communities that have. So he's given me a big dissertation. But the biggest concern I have about this whole issue is the transition period. And I'm going to start into the details now with regards to it. You may say there's a long lead time, but really the whole issue is very complex because the electricity grid is very complex. You know, I could discuss whether the motion is correct or not with regards to subsidies. Electricity has huge subsidies, and I could give you all the numbers and all that kind of stuff, but I don't want to go there because I think all those technical arguments of this and that and redundancy of systems is just some things we have to deal with. The first thing I want to deal with is electricity grid capacity or lack thereof. I've got an article, I've got so many papers here that says that growth of EVs will either break our electric grid or revolutionize it. The EV goals that the federal government have are going to put our electric grid in real issues if it ever is attained. That's where I'm just going to stop there. Adding the load for heat pumps, which is another significant load on the grid, is another significant thing. Heat pumps generally require, if you had a 100 amp service, you're going to go up to 200 amp service. You're going to probably, if you're going to go to a 40 amp breaker, and so you've got a 200 amp system. I personally know three individuals in this vicinity that have gone to the heat pump system, but not one contractor has put in just a heat pump system. All of them have done redundancy. And all the heat pump systems are running at the set point of efficiency of breaking even on costs, saving money, is 5 degrees C. That's where all their systems running. These systems are very expensive in comparison to the regular gas furnace that these people are putting in. The cost is significant. I'm part of the ISO group, which is the Independent Electrical Supplier Organizations, And I can tell you that there's mayors on that group that are crying for power and they're crying for gas. I just pulled up some articles from some of the rural leaders saying natural gas expansion is priority. And this motion will slow down any energy they get from natural gas. That's Lambton County, and I know our CAO is aware of that area. But that's only them. It's the whole north. When you read Minister Smith's response to me, he's saying the problem isn't necessarily southern Ontario, where heat pumps are far more effective. He says the north and the small communities will be greatly affected by that ruling. And that's one of the, and I could read you his big explanation that he gives. So continuing down along with that, my second point is completely phasing out, this is a report by ISA, completely phasing out natural gas in Ontario by 2030, like Ontario did with coal, will lead to blackouts and would result in increased electrical bill for our residents of 60%. That's a study done by ISO of what's going to happen to us if we completely rule out natural gas. The third is the electrical grid emergency preparedness. And I just want to talk about the recent weather events for everybody's reference and the lack of preparedness of this grid. In January 13th, 2024, extreme cold weather hits Alberta, the coldest weather in a half century. As many people turned up the thermostats to stay warm, Alberta's power grid was put under immense strain. To avoid taking pressure off the electrical grid, rolling back blackouts, rotating half to 1 hour power outage in Alberta under the Emergency Act were sent out as an alert to the Albertans. Let's just talk about our area. On December the 23rd, 24th, and 25th, 2022, Fortis, or Canadian National Power, Fort Erie, Port Colborne, and Wainfleet service territory, the regional chair declared an emergency because of the severe weather events. 32,088 customers were affected. It was a huge effect. The residents in that area, if you've had an insurance claim with regards to weather events, it's amazing how they call that an act of God and run away from covering you. I've had that happen to me when I had a sewer disruption at my home. My insurance company wouldn't cover it because they didn't call it an act of God. They called it an act of something else, and they walked away from claiming it. Not only that, they don't cover me for it anymore. And that's a professional engineer's insurance company. So, you know, the insurance company only wants one thing to do for you. They want to take your money. When it comes to a claim, it's a tough thing. Let's talk about some of the other events. On June 23rd, 2022, we had a failure at the transformer station down in Port Robinson. That took the hydro crews and the area that was affected most, Fenwick, all day to recover. The losses at even small stores at the Avondale and Fenwick were significant. Those people suffered. We're talking about the grid. And then we'll talk about the event that happened on February 24th, 2019, which is what you're well aware of. That's when North Fenwick and the farmers there were in distress because of their animals, and they didn't have water for the animals, and that's when our fire chief came to their rescue with water for their animals because the electric pumps wouldn't run. So the electric grid and emergency preparedness at this present time is not adequate. So in my view, because the transition period is not adequate enough on that ruling, I will not be supporting that motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those words, Councillor. Any other comments? Deputy Mayor Wink.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with some of the comments that Councillor Hildebrand made. The unfortunate part is the Ontario Energy Board, Ontario Hydro, and our government can't come to agreement about anything. And I was at a session at Roma in January where the Ontario Energy Board was saying that they were going to take down the Pickering nuclear plant in 2025 and provided warnings that in 2026 we would be experiencing blackouts and brownouts throughout Ontario, which doesn't really make a heck of a lot of sense. Unfortunately, I don't think there's a great plan in place for any of this. We need more capacity of hydro. But on the other hand, at some point in time, we have to draw a line in the sand and start looking at reducing the need for fossil fuels. And, you know, we won't see it in our lifetime, but, you know, I'm concerned about my grandkids and their kids in the future. And climate change is real. It's not something that we're making up. It's not something that these folks in the row here are making up. And there is a serious issue here, and we have to start taking small steps. And I think this resolution is a small step. We're not eliminating natural gas. OEB is looking at eliminating some subsidies. Natural gas will always be here, or will be here for quite some time. But if we stand back and do nothing, this planet's going to get worse and worse and worse as time goes on. And I want my grandkids and their kids to have a great life, not impacted by catastrophic storms and whatever, and catastrophic heat. I agree with the comments that Councillor Hildebrand is making with respect to hydro and the grid. I've had conversations with Mr. Sawatsky yesterday saying, you know, I do have concerns. Like if everyone ran out today and bought electric vehicles, the electrical grid would just explode. You know, we don't have capacity, and someone's got to figure out our capacity and what's the right mix. But anyway, with respect to this motion, I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those words, Deputy Mayor. Any other comments? See, Councillor Eckert.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the motion put forward by Councillor Olson, and I certainly respect the 2 cents put in by Councillor Hildebrand, which I think was worth a lot more than 2 cents. I will be in support of this motion because I think it's motions like this that may spur the province, the Ontario Hydro or whatever, to upgrade their grid to move into the future, because nothing right now seems to be moving them into that area. So I will be in support of that, simply because this may cause them to get off their seats and start doing something about the power grid. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Eckert. Any, see, Councillor Kerr?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. The comments made by Councillor Hildebrand are 100% on target. I think probably the biggest part that's lacking is that there's not really an effective plan laid out how to transition using a blanket stop and start. This is talking about cessation of the subsidy for the installation of gas pipelines, not existing gas pipelines, but it seems to be of gas pipelines in new construction. So the existing infrastructure still is going to be there. It's not eliminating what was done in the past. This is just talking about, is this a wake-up call to say, okay, we don't want you to subsidize for the new builds. You've come out with this, we want you to build 1.5 million homes, and we want to make sure this particular group seems to have an inroad a little bit better than the others. Having built a new home a few years ago, at that time, when I ran the energy audit, I looked at heat pumps, I looked at geothermal, and at the time, when I built, and I built a rather unusual home that's insulated on the inside, outside, underside, topside. The joke is it can heat it with a candle. But my break even relative to natural gas versus going through geothermal was going to be 74 years. So that kind of laid out the decision for me that that's probably not a good economic decision to make for me owning the home. Things have changed since that time, but it's being aware. I think what's happened, and I concur that this is more of a, I don't think the government's going to make a blanket shutdown decision based on what we send forward. However, it is an encouragement within the system for them to look at the alternatives. I personally had hoped if there had been something included following, I realize this is one that's going from a number of, this motion is very similar to one that's being put forth by a number of communities. But to highlight what Councillor Hildebrand brought up about devising a feasible plan for the next 10 years as part of this, to encourage them to say, look, you need to come up with, rather than just saying we're denying, we don't want you to do this, do 100% flip. No, I don't think we really, that's the intent. We want you to reconsider what you're doing and maybe put it in a more tangible fashion and applicable and implementable fashion rather than a complete stop. The OEB looks at it in a particular fashion, and that's fine, and I appreciate their position with it. I will say I'm going to support the motion as is because it's going forward to tweak the coattails of the people making the decisions to try and think differently. Yeah, I would encourage that we may want to take a look at from a town level, talking about some of the other things that are part of Councillor Hildebrand's points that are brought up about developing plans to move forward. There was only one thing in the, and I appreciate Councillor Olson reading in the motion itself. It's about 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the 5th paragraph on page 4 of 6 where it just says they are inconsistent with the city's climate targets. It really should be the town's. This is just housekeeping at that point. But outside of that, like I said, I've made my pitch, my rationale behind it, and looking at it from a number of perspectives. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
And you even got a musical end to it. Yeah.
That was the pain coming out the table.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Any other comments? Not seeing any, but no further discussion. I mean, obviously, this whole energy field, we could be here 3 or 4 days discussing where we're going. It is good to see. I was in yesterday talking to a regional climatologist. Mr. Swartzky was with me, and we were talking about the new plant being built in Niagara Falls, hydrogen. There's a big plant being built in Barrie, hydrogen. Hydrogen, of course, has been used in European trains ever since 2019, and most people realize that electric cars are just a stopgap measure until hydrogen can be more economically produced. It takes a heck of a lot of electricity to do the electrolysis, but anyway, and BMW is indeed going to be making a production car next year that will be running on hydrogen. So hydrogen is definitely a fuel of the future. So anyway, let's call the vote on the motion. We've debated it. All those in favor of the motion? And all those opposed? So the motion carries. And thank you, council, for the debate. I'll turn to the clerk. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So I have a motion moved by Councillor Hildebrand and seconded by Councillor Kerr. And it's a notice of motion, so I'll ask that you turn it over to the mover to introduce his motion.
Okay, Counselor?
Oh, sorry, I'm mixed up.
Thank you.
Counselor Hildebrand?
Yeah, I would like Council Kerr to
Oh.
to have the discussion, but no, I'm good.
Okay.
Because I'm the one that prepared the motion and he's seconded.
Oh, okay.
It has to do with the Marlene Stewart Street Park. It has to do with the multitude of meters that we have in the area. And this is a project that's been involved with the US group that we're working on. And Public Works has been involved in it. And the reason why we want to work on this, because we think there's savings to be made not only on the way the area is operated, but the number of meters we have down there. We don't, because every account we have, you pay a little, an amount per month. So we don't need that. Plus, everything down there is behind a secure cabinet because of vandalism and all the other stuff that goes down there. The reason why we linked it to the LED lighting and the camera project, that's IT project 0524, is the fact that with the LED lightings, the lighting is different than it is with the high-pressure sodium lights, and the cameras need to be different, and we want to make sure that we have our report from staff dealing with that area and coming up with all their recommendations before we implement that project for the IT department. There's no use going out buying cameras that don't properly address the lighting that's produced. And that's the reason for this motion. It's basically to get a staff report and so it can come back to council and we can make the final decision as to what's to be done in the area. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And Counselor Kerr, as a seconder, any comments?
Yes, it follows up. I mean, it seems somewhat ridiculous to have 5 separate accounts and have to pay 5 separate dings for just having an account every month, when if you can consolidate under a single account and be able to track and trace what's going on. It does, it kind of, how many different light switches do you have to have for a room, really, when you can get away with one? So I'm supporting what he's doing, and the comment was, yes, we have to make sure that everything blends with the surveillance equipment, the electrical demands and everything else, so we have a sense of what's going on. The only concern is with 5 separate accounts, you might have a sense of one account potentially being a high energy draw where the other 4 weren't, might get lost. But I think through energy audits and everything else, this can be solved with this one. So that's why I'm supportive of the motion.
Okay, thank you. Any member of council have comments on this motion? Okay, not seeing any. I call the question. All those in favor? And I see none opposed. Mr. Clerk, the motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So moving now to item number 16, our agenda. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wink and seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be it resolved that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public in order to consider the following: personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, 1 item, labor relations or employee negotiations. 2, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. 3 items, appointments to advisory committee and non-union discussions, and litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. 1 item, the Human Rights Tribunal. To you for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on moving in camera? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Motion is moved. We will wait till the room is emptied.